the opening sequence in itself, where we make that rotation to press, elbow staying in close. The way that we do it is not a huge circle to press, it's just a rotation, pressing with the outer edge of the hand. Rotating the wrist as we pull, not beforehand to make a separate movement out of it. So of course this movement you could look at with the pull as within the clinch range, either a push to offset that way maybe, or even a choke. If I grab his throat, that he's probably going to grab my wrist to try to make it stop. But can also be, if the wrist is down, working that same rotation to press here, keeping the elbow in and just rotating the wrist with a small press. Rotating as we pull is going to create a locked arm drag. You can hyperextend the bicep. The repeating sequence that you do in all four directions, north, south, east, west, in that order actually. And what's interesting to me is that you don't change sides on this, is that you use the same side every time. And this happens a lot in some of the older kata. Most of the time, these are all right-handed techniques, as most people are right-handed. And so I tried not to look at this as a left-handed technique. We keep the body angled in hanmi. And so when we make the strike, we don't turn our bodies into it. We stay closed in here as we strike. Outside, moving in, this can work really well inside here after potentially a block from this hand as a takedown. The other way that I've done this recently is once we move in, blocking, and striking, keeping this pulled back as we make the strike, and then using the left arm to pin it to my own body, and then potentially punch and grab here with clothing if I can, and then working in the kick into the knee from there. And that kick may vary, may only be able to reach the front knee from there. So that entry is blocking, and striking, pin, pull, kick. These movements here, the key points that we focus on are that the lower arm touches our chest, right? That it's closer to us. And that can represent two things, in that because of the supinated wrist position here, that it's turned up, could obviously represent that it's a close range technique because we can only reach so far that way, but can also represent, because it's touching us, that we're actually in contact with our opponent. Look at whenever we contact ourselves, that we're likely contacting our opponents. A closing and then opening movement, where we have one and then the other. So I'll make this parry as I'm stepping in, dropping, potentially collapsing his knee with mine if I can, and that could be the end of it. And try to make either a strike and or grip here, and if that happens, he's likely going to try to stop me. And from there, I'll make the foot sweep while I'm driving my elbow down into the clavicle, the collarbone, and making that rotation sweep at the same time to make a takedown. From Shikodachi represents the height difference, as I'll have to drop to get under this, and then this is where the closeness of the arm comes into play. If I catch a kick out here, it's very difficult for me to control it. I'm not that strong. A lot of schools show a kick and a punch at the same time, as if that's a common attack. But in reality, as I move in and drop, I want to cover here because his hands are so close to my face. And so I make that cover here as I hold this close for control, and then I make the same movement from there, where I drive the elbow down into the clavicle, the collarbone, and then make the foot sweep onto his base foot. When you make this sweep and then move forward, as the kata does from there, if you have a willing partner and some mats maybe, then the end result of that is for them to land on their head, which is a great end result. Kamakiri no kamae, which is the praying mantis posture, is making a clockwise turn, obviously dropping as you move down into shikodachi. Lapel grab with an oncoming punch, and then they use the arms dropping initially to bring the attacker in, to maybe offset that punch, and then block it, and using the fingertips to strike from there. With that same grab is using the elbow to wrap around, and this is the rotation where I have to move in that same way to get around and puts more pressure on their shoulder joint as I do that. And then the drop into shikodachi with the lift of the arm as I do that is what puts even more pressure on the shoulder joint as I lift from there. And don't forget, as you do this, to use your backhand, your left hand, as a pin on theirs so that this lock has the highest effect possible from there.
It hurts.